Welcome to another episode of the Executive Exclusive. I'm your County Executive, Julie Giordano, and with me, as always, is our favorite Director of Administration, Bunky Luffman. So again, Bunky, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh yeah, it's great to be here.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've been here. I always
Sure
say
has.
that. I feel like I say that every time we come in here, but it's been it's been a while, but we were a little busy. So before we get into that, though, I do want to say we are welcoming a new team member to the Wicomico County family. She's actually kind of returning. We were able to fill our Director of Planning and Zoning role. So as most of you know, Lori Carter retired after 35 years with the county, I think it was.
So.
30 some. Laurie, I'm sorry if I got it wrong, but 30 some plus years with the county. She did an amazing job, and she is taking on a new role as our grant administrator. And we now have Tracy Taylor, who is from Maryland Department of Planning, and she retired from her state job and has come back home. She used to work for us a long time ago, and we are so thrilled to have her. So you've known her for a while, right? Because when you worked kind of at the governor's level, or with that, you kind of work with her too.
Oh yeah, well I was chair of planning and zoning in Del Mar for a while, and then at the governor's level, sometimes we'd have planning issues, So yeah, it was great. When Lori decided to retire and take the other position, she was the top of the list. But we did interview, several candidates that were really good, and she was clearly, the best candidate.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And we were so happy that she decided to come back. And what I love about her is in her job in Maryland Department of Planning, she worked with all of our municipalities already. So she already had that great working relationship with them. And, that was like one of our pillars. One of the things that we wanted to do is making sure that we are not siloing our, the municipalities. Like, we're all a county. And so we wanted to make sure, we're all one county. So we wanted to make sure that we were doing that. And she is such a great person to do that. So welcome, Tracy. We are so happy that you're here. Any planning and zoning issues, I think Keith can take us a breath, because he did a great job stepping up in that acting role until Tracy came on full time. So any planning and zoning issues, you can go see Tracy Taylor, but don't overwhelm her too much, because she's still kind of new. So, all right. And then kind of going into the big thing. So question A, right? So we obviously are very excited that we were able to defeat question A. So it was a ballot initiative that failed. Thank you to everyone who came out and spoke against this and voted against it. I know the language was a little tricky. You've probably dealt with ballot initiatives more than I have. I think they're purposely kind of tricky, aren't they, Buck?
Ballot initiatives almost always pass. Because the default of the voter just seems to be, if you don't have information on it, you just vote yes.
Right.
And I guess the thinking is they wouldn't have put it on here if it wasn't important, kind of thing. And so that's sort of a tricky thing when you approach it. You try to get, because not every voter, no matter how much is spent on advertising and different things, is going to ever hear about a ballot question. And even if they do, they're focused on the presidential. So you just sort of have to figure out, what will a voter who truly doesn't know anything about this, how will they vote? And it's an open question, but it seems to always be yes.
Yeah.
So it makes it even harder to win against vote.
Yeah, and I'm really proud of us. So somebody told me that they said that usually they pass, and usually they pass like 70-30. So we were ahead, I think. After Election Day, it was like about 10 points. I think they closed the gap a little bit to about 8.5 points. But either way, we were able to convince 28% of the population that this is not a good idea. We don't want to do this. And look, anybody can say, well, it was only this amount of voters. It was only a couple thousand voters, or only a couple points. I think 8.5 points is huge. I mean, I would be thrilled if I was a candidate and I beat somebody by 8.5 points. I mean, and so to do that on a spread of the ballot initiative, I think was just really huge. And I'm really proud of our citizens for coming out. I was really happy. We were out at early voting, and I was able to talk to a lot of people, and a lot of people said, yes, I know about question A. I've heard about question A. A lot of people heard about it and then needed us to reiterate, exactly what it was. And I think that a lot of people realized that the balance of power is a smart way to go, and we don't want to give, too much power to one branch of government. So thank you to all the citizens, again, who came out and voted and realized, the balance of power is important, and that we should always have a balance of power. You should never give up your voice, and we never want to go from elected to appointed. We never want to do that. It's unconstitutional, and anybody who would want that, I think, would just be crazy, because it's taking away the voice of the voters. And so I'm really happy. But I don't know if there's anything else we really need to say about Question A. Is there anything else you want to add?
The amazing thing was the month of October. There was so much accomplished in the month of October that were highlighted, and honestly, sort of a takeaway for me, in my position, is I think that we need to be more proactive in sort of explaining to the public exactly what we're doing. Like for instance, there are a lot of things that we send to the council. The council votes on. Sometimes they need one of us there, or an employee there, or sometimes not. But a lot of these things that the council then signs off on, they have the public meeting. We have employees that potentially have been working on it for months. And I'll give you a good example. The sanitary district legislation, when we get that in front of the council, we've literally been working on that for over a year. We've been working, I meet with, Amanda Pollock and our public works team every other week, and we've been talking about this, talking about how other counties do it, pitfalls we've seen another county make, and how to avoid them. And we've went over and over and over this, and then working with legal, sort of refined a way that we can do this with safeguards, and a way we can progress forward, but with appropriate safeguards. So, but I don't think that our office, or our departments even, do a good job of explaining all the amount of work that goes in. And I think that the public sees sort of the ones that do tune in or come by council meeting, they just see that tip of the iceberg when it's in front of the council. And I don't begrudge the council any appropriate, applause they should get for what they do, but there is a lot of work that goes into a lot of these things going their way. And I think in October, we really stepped up about talking about different things, from the, governor being here for the airport, and a whole lot of different things. And I think we need to sort of keep that. And I think it's a good thing for transparency and for public engagement.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. The sanitary commission, or the sanitary district legislation, it was something that we got past that first session, in Annapolis, for us to be able to form the sanitary district. And so this was just, we've done a lot of other steps, but yeah, you're right. People don't know how hard we've worked. And if you go into a council meeting and you're watching a council meeting, or you read the agenda, that vote to start the sanitary commission, or kind of get the council blessing on this, may take 30 seconds. It might, and people don't understand, you're right, the amount of work that goes into it. So I do think that we do need to do a better job. People don't understand when you go into a council meeting and they do all that legislative stuff, that kind of, I say boring, it's not really boring, because it's really the work of the county, but all of those resolutions, that's the work. You know what I mean? And then we get into public comment, and then they have their work sessions and things like that. But the work is really done at the very beginning. And so I think you're right. I think we do need to do a better job at really explaining all the good things that are coming across their desk, and that we are getting passed and implemented, in the county. So, and speaking of the council meeting, I just wanted to recap on two things that were talked about in the council meeting. One of them is the legislation that they're looking to pass, and then one of them is Horizon. Obviously, that's a hot topic, and we know that planning and zoning is, there's a planning and zoning commission meeting that's talking about the density, and there's a lot of different topics that are going on, around the city. And so, with the vehicle legislation, this was proposed by Councilman Joe Holloway, and it's not that I don't think that the legislation is necessarily poorly worded or bad, but we do feel that it fits a little bit better in our personnel manual. And I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of different things that they would like to see in the county, in the way that the county is behaving is the wrong word, but the way that the county is being portrayed, or things that we're doing in the county, not all of that needs to be legislative. There are things in a personnel manual. If we have expectations of employees and how they're supposed to act, like when they have a county vehicle, or whatever the case may be, that really needs to be a discussion. And the good news is we have a 2024 personnel manual that we have, that Donna has worked really, really hard on, our Director of Human Resources. She has gotten the input of the FOP. She's gotten the input from all of our department heads and them talking to employees. So this is a very much a group effort. And we are right at the point where this would be a great opportunity to sort of put that in there. So I think Mr. Benson, their attorney, was reading off my concerns, and I was happy that he addressed them. And this is not to necessarily continually challenge what they're doing. It's saying we think that there's probably a better fit for this. And not that the legislation was necessarily bad, but I just think it's more appropriate in the personnel manual.
Well, and there were a few things that were unfortunate that happened during the session. So first of all, there are a couple emails that our office got from the county council office on pausing the personnel manual, because we've actually, our director of HR has been in front of them with the personnel. They wanted to pause it to finish the budget. And I believe that was last April. We get an email. We're like, okay, makes sense. We're working on the budget. Then, of course, the budget wraps up in June. Of course, at that point, they put question A on. So then they wanted to pause it for question A until after the election. Then I get an email, I believe it was November 7th, so after the election, where the council office says, okay, now we can work on the personnel manual in December or January. We're like, great, that's great. But then in this council meeting, there was a statement made that if the executive office wanted this in a personnel manual, they've had since January to bring it to us. Well, look, our office, and I don't think that was made maliciously. The person who made it, I don't think was aware of the communication between the council office and the executive office. But, it's just not true the way that was said. So we absolutely want to push the personnel manual. We've wanted to push the personnel manual. We've wanted it to be in front of them, and we look forward to it being in front of them in December.
Yeah, absolutely. And we need it done. We really need it done. There are a lot of things that have happened since 2003 or 2010 that things have changed. So we need to make sure that we have an updated personnel manual, especially based on new regulations and new laws that have come out statewide, and things that we would want to see implemented here. So yeah, we're hoping to.
And then the other thing, there seemed to be an assumption or a discussion that if a employee driving a county vehicle was to get in an accident, that they wouldn't go get drug or alcohol tested. No, that's the policy. They do go get drug and alcohol tested.
Right.
Unfortunately, you, me, the HR department, none of us were invited to be at the table to talk about, because we could have provided those answers, but we weren't invited. So, we're seeing this and we're just like, no, this isn't the case at all. So I don't want the public to think that there's county employees out here getting into car accidents and they're not either held accountable if it's their fault, or certainly we're sending them for drug and alcohol testing because that's appropriate.
Yeah, exactly. And it does frustrate me because I feel like there are certain topics that they would like to discuss and they just don't have the right parties in the room.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important to have that. You want to have your experts, you want to have the people that are, working with that type of topic. For the vehicle legislation, either you or I, Donna, at least, the HR director, to have those discussions and say, hey, look, does this seem like a better fit in the personnel manual? Can we, put this in here? Does it really need to be legislation? My concern with legislation is I feel like there are things that change regularly, especially with vehicles. We're switching out vehicles. We're doing this, we're doing that. So I feel that when you put it in law, it makes it really difficult if a change needs to be made, because then you need to go through the whole legislative process. As opposed to if it's in the personnel manual, it's changed by a resolution and it's a little bit easier to sort of, it's a little bit more malleable rather than in concrete. So I don't know. I just don't agree with it. And I think it's more of a personnel thing. So it's really an executive function. But we'll see what happens with that. We've had a couple of questions. And so I think that, hopefully they'll be answered and maybe they'll invite us to the next work session. We'll see. Yeah. And then the other part, of course, was the hot topic was Horizon. That got brought back up. I just wanted to make this really clear. So there are constituents out there that like the Horizon, tax credit, and there are people that don't like the Horizon tax credit. I want everyone to understand where I fall as the executive in this process. My opinion of Horizon is completely irrelevant. It doesn't matter whether I like it or I don't like it. I am bound by law to follow a certain process when it comes to Horizon. First and foremost, and I think the last time we were here, you read the legislation of what it stated. It says that the county executive shall submit the application to the council for consideration. So we had somebody submit an application. It was late, but he did submit the application. Nowhere in the law does it say if it's late, it doesn't go over to council. So I have to send it regardless. So I take it, and I submit it over to council for their consideration. So the first vote that came out, the resolution didn't pass to give the tax credit, and it was 3-3 with one abstention. It seems like that topic is going to be revisited on December 3rd to give one specific entity, the one who applied for the tax credit. And again, whether you like the legislation or you don't, the legislation is in place right now. And so if the tax credit is deserved based on the boxes that were checked, that's going to be a tough decision for the council. I think that it's kind of, he was late, but does it really matter that he was late? Should he get the tax credit? Should he not? Either way, it is not part of my purview at all. This is the council's final decision. They are also passing it by resolution. So I think that there was some confusion. I got a couple text messages saying, hey, you can veto this in 25 days, which is not even a thing, but I can't veto this at all. And legislative bills I can veto, and then it has to be, the veto can be overridden with a 5-2 majority. In this case, it's a resolution. I have no say. Unfortunately, I don't. Fortunately or unfortunately in this case. Whatever the council says is the final say. There's no place for me to sign. There's nothing for me to really do in this case. And so that's kind of where we are. And I know you were kind of part of that whole legislation. I know you were helping because I think it was Carl's bill, former Delegate Anderton's bill. So any thoughts on that from being in this, on this side of it?
So the original bill basically just gave the county and the 8 incorporated municipalities the power to give this kind of tax credit if they chose. I don't think any of the other 8, I think Salisbury did and Wycomico did. I'm not aware of any of the other 7 that have done it, but they can or they can choose not to. So the bill that Delegate Anderton passed didn't compel the county to give this. It just gave them the opportunity. The county council, and I think it was acting county executive Pessota, decided they would do it. So they did it. But then they created this process. I mean, honestly, if they wanted the executive to have a voice, I would think the process would have been, that the council would say yes or no, and then it would go to you through a legislative bill. But they chose a resolution. Mm-hmm. That's what that council did. It wasn't this current council, it was previous council, but that's just sort of how it was set up.
Yeah, and unfortunately, so there's just no place for me to sign, not sign, X out, do anything on a resolution. So whatever the council decides on December 3rd, I will support. If they support to give the tax credit, I'll support it because there's nothing I can really do. Or if they decide not to give it, then I support that decision as well because, again, there's really nothing I can do at this point. So I don't want anybody to think that it's because, the person who built the Ross is like a friend of mine and that's why I did this. No, I was compelled by law to do it, to turn the application over to the council for consideration. And so it'll be up to our county council to determine what they think is best at this point, for this bill. Or for this situation. So that's where we are on that. And there really wasn't anything else I really needed to touch on the council meeting. But jumping to the next thing that we've been working on. So we have been, and we actually just met today, we are working on our CIP. So again, capital improvement plan. We are looking at those larger projects in the county. It's a very sobering moment, I think, for us, because we really kind of see where the needs are in the county. But more importantly, we kind of have a monumental task ahead of us. And I do want to be transparent about it. So one of the big projects that we decided to go forward with, basically, with the council saying, hey, this is the direction we want to go, and we have the ability to add it to the budget. And so we moved forward with it was the Fruitland Primary Project. We understand investing in education is super important. Believe me, I 100% get that. And does Fruitland need a new school? Absolutely, they do. However, what was really disheartening for us is we as a county are responsible for a certain amount of that funding. So I think the total amount for Fruitland was $79 million. We as a county are responsible for part of that. $20 million we just gave last year. So we bonded 10 and then took 10 out of PAYGO. This year, our allocation was $8 million. And the state was then, going to pay a huge chunk of $28 million, I believe. And unfortunately, the state has come to us and said, hey, we don't have $28 million. We only have $5.9 million. And we need you, if you want to continue this project, to sort of front or forward front this money, is how you would say it, I guess. The front, what is it called?
Forward funding.
Forward funding. Thank you. The forward funding of this. It's got me so discombobulated now. So when you get news like that, it really kind of, puts a damper on everything. And I'll tell you why. Again, we understand the importance of education. We are going to push as hard as we can to get Fruitland done. But it really has had us to really rethink other projects. I mean, and that's just reality. Are we going to be able to move on with this park? Are we going to be able to pave this lot? Are we going to be able to do this? Are we going to be able to do that? So we really have to be strategic as to how we move forward with that. So while I appreciate all of the teachers and the principal and the superintendent and everybody community coming out and saying, hey, we really want Fruitland, we get you and we understand it, and we are going to try everything we can to make sure that Fruitland stays on track. However, that project in itself, and this is just reality, is going to affect, everything else. Is there anything you want to talk about with that?
Yeah, so we're going through the CIP and, it's not final. We'll be presenting it to the council in December, but just preliminarily, there are projects, capital projects, that need to be done in several departments. And since we have to forward fund this school, it looks like we're probably going to have to push public safety projects. We're going to have to push public works projects. Just about every department is going to see us move their projects back on the CIP from something maybe we could have funded this year or next year to 2 or 3 years out, just because this money is wrapped up. And the state, as of today, is only going to pay us $5.9 million, I think, this year, and then $6 million a year to pay us off everything. So it's going to take several years for them to even pay us back. And we're looking at how we can even bond it, because then we're going to have to pick up the tab on the interest rate for the 40-some million dollars over 2 years that we're going to have to bond on the state's behalf. So our taxpayers in our county are going to have to pick up interest on borrowing that is 100% not our fault. It's the state had said they would fund this, and now suddenly they can't. And I get budgets change, and it's just a really bad situation. But it is absolutely going to have an impact on several of our departments.
Yeah, it really is. And so now it's like we have to figure out, okay, we know we promised you this next year, and now it's like we have to bump it out again because this has to take priority. And we understand it. And like I said, I don't want anybody to think that we do not think that Fruitland is important. We do, and like I said, we plan to move forward with it. However, again, one project has us wrapped up for $40 million extra that we weren't planning on. So yeah, it is. It's really going to take, it really takes a hit on other things. So a little bit of a sobering moment for us, but we're working on it. We're working it out. We're trying to figure out the best course of action, and we have faith in our finance department that they're going to try to figure out the best way, and talking to the experts and things like that, we will figure it out. So
and I do want to say, because sometimes school funding comes in, and the conversation is almost exclusively about operating, maintenance of effort, that kind of thing. Our county, there are very few, if any, counties who have built school after school after school like we have over the past 10 to 15 years. You queue them right up. And I'm on the school building commission, so Y Middle's next. So we already know what school's going to be after Fruitland. Our school system and the school building commission does a good job of queuing them up. But what's lost in the conversation of school funding is the county council, county executive, and the funding we put into school construction never seems to be discussed. But it's a lot of money.
It is. I think when Pam did it, so right now, and we are having that discussion that we may not be appropriately funding schools, and that's our maintenance of effort, and that's their operating. But again, like Bunk said, nothing about the capital project is mentioned. And I think when they did it in the last, I forget however many years, however long we've had Munis, which is our whole system, governmental system thing where we input everything and all the numbers and keeps everything straight for us. was $152 million that we've put into school building, into school buildings and building new schools. So I don't want the public to think that it's kind of hard to hear, well, you're not funding enough for education. And meanwhile, we literally have to pay an extra $40 million. So we'll see how it goes. Like I said, we are plowing forward. We're going to make sure that Fruitland gets done and it stays on time. But like I said, it's really made us sort of rethink, some other things. So it is what it is. So on a brighter note, and I just wanted to touch on a couple of good things, as we, sort of, get to the ending part of this program, is we just had an unveiling of the Frederick Douglass Memorial. And I have to say, I'm super proud because, you go and see this, and if you look at the bottom, you see all the people who donated to this, and your name's right on there. Your family is right on there. So, I'm going to kind of let you take the lead on this. I know I spoke. There were a lot of speakers out there. We had a really nice crowd out last Friday, unveiling the commemorative plaque of Frederick Douglass. If you haven't seen it yet, it's outside of our courthouse. It's really a cool thing. And so we were contacted by President Cannon and Alita Davis. And I'll let you kind of take the lead on this since you were a donor and you're on the sign. So.
Yeah, so Frederick Douglass had visited our courthouse, and oddly, this is something that me and Delegate Anderton had talked about years ago. And not that conversation led to this, because we were kind of siloed having this conversation. Like, Frederick Douglass spoke here, we should mark that. But Wicomico Preservation, also Alita Davis, had been leading this effort and talking to President Cannon, and then brought me in on it. And it was. It was not a burden. It was really a blessing to be able to give that, because I think Frederick Douglass is an all-world intellect. I mean, he did a speaking tour of Europe, articulate, tenacity, courage. I mean, you go right down the list of things that you aspire to be or you want your children to aspire to be, and Frederick Douglass ticks off every box. I mean, just an incredible individual. So I think it was great, that he appeared, and I think it's part of the history of Salisbury and honestly the Eastern Shore that we really need to embrace. I'm really happy that the sign went up, and in particular, I think, and when I went home and I talked to my children about it, and I said, look, I think sometimes there's sort of a silo, and when you think about things. And I think sometimes that, African Americans look up to African Americans, and, that's appropriate. But I think sometimes white kids, like my kids, maybe, they're not they don't always look up to African American heroes like I think they should. And I think that Frederick Douglass is not just an African American hero, he's an American hero. And it's appropriate for people of all races and backgrounds to look up to him. And to read his autobiographies, because he's really inspiring in the same way, that Harriet Tubman's inspiring, same way Nelson Mandela's inspiring, and so many people across several races are inspiring. So what I hope happens with that sign, and it happened that night when I went home and talked to my kids about it, is that people come by and they think, Frederick Douglass. And they go right to their phone and they Google Frederick Douglass. And if they read nothing more than the Wikipedia entry about Frederick Douglass and his life, then I think that sign was well worth what we paid for it. And hopefully they'll go deeper and read his autobiographies and know his story. And that night, I went home and telling my kids about it, and they did that. So I saw that actually happen in my own family. So yeah, it was really. I take no credit for it. It was really a blessing, and to be involved in it. And honestly, the credit goes to my wife, who allowed me to write the check.
Yeah. Yes, the boss, and she told you it was fine.
Which did not break us. I mean, it wasn't a huge amount. So.
Yeah. Well, I know. But I think it's really cool that you did that. And like I said, I think seeing the amount of people out there, and all different ages and I mean, it was just crazy, like seeing so many different people. We had employees out there, we had city employees out there, just citizens coming up, people from the Historical Society. It was just a lot of people, delegates, were there. So it was a really good event, and a lot of speakers, a lot of heart, a lot of passion. And I was really honored to be asked to speak. And we're happy that it's up. And like I said, if you haven't been to downtown Salisbury, definitely just take 5 minutes, and read the plaque, and learn about Frederick Douglass. He was pretty amazing. So.
Yeah.
All right. And then two other things that we're going to talk about really quick. We got some good news. So we have talked various times on this program about the aviation maintenance school. And it looks like the final FAA certification, which allows us to do the entire school, should be coming any day now. Any day now, which is really exciting. Dave Ryan has worked so hard over at Sweat, and I give him a huge shout out. Again, this signature project or the signature school is unparalleled to anything in the United States. And I know I think I get weirdly excited about it, but it's just so cool that it's here, you know, and it's part of our airport. And we are able to have a, certificated program of an industry that's really hurting, and we are getting ready to help build this aviation industry. We are going to help aviation all up and down the East Coast and maybe all the way into Middle America. It wouldn't surprise me if kids ended up, because it's aviation, they can go anywhere, and get this, but this certification opens up so many doors for them, and it's just really exciting. And if they decide to continue on that maintenance track, they can. They end up with a really great job working for Piedmont or for another airline, but they also can transfer that certification into UMES's aviation school, which is awesome because then you can go get your pilot license. You can end up with a bachelor's degree and go a different route. So it's just such a great program. It's such a great opportunity. And I really hope our new Secretary of Transportation for the United States, I really want to invite him, maybe our president down. I would love to have both of them here to sort of see it, because we here in Wicomico County are changing the world of aviation right here. And I think that that's awesome, and it needs to be celebrated. And I think that we need to get some credit. So big shout out again, Tony Rudy, to Piedmont Airlines, to Dave Ryan, just to so many people that made that possible. So we're almost there.
Well, and I also want to thank, both Senator Cardin and Senator
Yes.
Van Hollen took the time to come down along with the governor, for the ribbon cutting, and they cited how much money, we had gotten federally to help us with it, and that the help from the federal government is imperative. And I think, since there was just an election, just sort of a friendly reminder, when elections are over, it's time to govern. So
Right.
Our office will work with, anyone in DC or Annapolis. We have to make sure that Wicomico gets the funding it deserves on any number of things, so we're putting Wicomico first, and we're going to the elected leaders and trying our best, our level best, to do what we can for Wicomico. And that means Senator Van Hollen, who we've met with before, Senator Cardin, Senator-elect also Brooks. We'll, I'm sure, be talking to her in the next few months. Congressman Harris, certainly. But also other congressmen. We have a Congressman-elect Elfrith that I knew from my time at DNR, because as a state senator, she was very active in waterman issues. Congressman-elect Oshevsky, Johnny O, County Executive of Baltimore County. I know, we both know him, and others. So we've really gotten to know, the federal delegation. So I think we're really well placed to go to both Annapolis and DC, along with Lori Carter, our grants administrator, and bring more money back to the county.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think people sometimes forget that. And I think that you put it really nicely when you say the election's over, it's time to govern. And I think that that's really important. I think, I, took a picture with Governor Wes Moore, and, I got, some flack for that. And I'm sorry, he's the governor of Maryland. I mean, he's who Marylanders elected. And we have to work together. And so I think the tagline on the picture said, setting politics aside, for the betterment of Wicomico's future. And that's what we were doing. Believe me, both of us understand that politically we are not aligned. We both understand that very well. But it didn't matter at that point in time, because we are focusing on economic development. We are focusing on jobs. We are focusing on our airport being an economic jewel for this region. And that's what was important. Politics didn't matter at that point in time, and so I give them all the credit for coming down. I give them the credit for, giving a shout out to us. They didn't even have to do that. And they did, and talked about the partnership that we have. And I think that you hit the nail on the head. And we plan to continue to, kind of govern that way, where not everything is going to be politically driven. It's going to be common sense, the common sense solution. So, and then the very last thing I want to talk about, and I didn't even realize this was going to make a news story, but a lot of, I got interviewed a couple of times on it, is the Civic Center funding. So this was like a big thing, and I didn't even think it was going to be that big of a deal, but we received, this was actually Acting County Executive John Pasota received money from, and I'm going to lose the organization, but it was $5 million. Was it
EDA,
EDA,
grant,
thank
U.S.
you.
Commerce.
Yes, so from Commerce, EDA, to do some renovations to our Civic Center, well-needed renovations. This was going to give it a nice little facelift, extending some things out. And then there was also some state funding and county money that brought up that pot to about $7 million. But that was a couple years ago. And so when the bids went out, it came in a little bit higher. So I was so happy, though, that the county council, after, a pretty, thorough discussion, decided to go ahead and vote to cover the rest of the cost, an extra $2.7 million. Again, the Civic Center, we have to invest in it. Our airport, we have to invest in it. There are certain aspects of this county that we cannot continually defer maintenance on or not do or change specs or change, we have to invest in those things. Those are the things that are going to bring, dollars into the county. And Steve Miller does a great job. Him and Katie both were up there, fighting. And Pam was there as well, our director of finance, explaining, the importance of this. And at the end of it, the county council did vote in favor to do it. And I was really happy. That facelift is so needed. And I'm really excited for the Civic Center. I do want to tell everyone as a forewarning, in the next year, because we're going to start breaking ground on that, I think, I want to say February-ish is what Steve said. We're going to be a year under construction. So bear with us at the Civic Center. We're putting in, hopefully, a freight elevator. We're also going to be doing this facelift. We're getting a new roof. We are putting time, money, energy, blood, sweat, and tears into that Civic Center this year. So bear with us. It's going to be a little uncomfortable for about a year, but after that, it's going to be worth it because we are so excited to see it. The plans that I've seen are really exciting. So I'm excited for us.
Well, yeah, and I need to hang this up in my office. I actually have a poster from one of the times Hulk Hogan wrestled at the Civic Center in the 80s.
Yeah.
So, and I needed to frame it and put it in the office. But this Civic Center, if you've been around for a while and you went to the Civic Center maybe in the 70s and 80s and 90s, I'm showing my age, but if you can already see through the work of County Executive Carver, that council, Acting Executive Pasota and that council, as well as you and our current council, of putting money in. The tile work out front, I mean, at one point it was really damaged, it was brown, dated looking. It looks way better. The seats in the arena itself look way better.
I remember they were green.
Yeah.
Remember the old ones? They were green.
It was green. There was, chewing gum on the bottom of the seats, and it just there were issues, and but that, one of the most exciting things I think in the last 10, 15 years of the county is before that, for some reason, our county didn't seem to be investing in an airport or the Civic Center as much. And now I think both our council and our executives that have been serving are willing to invest in both because they recognize that they really are investments, because there is a return on the investment of people using both facilities who then go to hotels, go to restaurants, and that kind of thing.
Well, and I think that you see that. So if you take our airport, for example, because the investments were made, that's why we have an aviation maintenance school. That's why we were getting the runway extension. That's why it looks so brand new in there. And that's why we have a new airline coming. We forgot to even talk about that. New airline coming to, that's going to be a direct flight to Florida. But that's why those things are coming, because people see, those investors or vendors or whoever see the investment that we're putting in it. And then for the Civic Center, same thing. There are a lot of things that are going on behind the scenes with the Civic Center, not just with this, but there's a couple of things that we're looking at that I think are going to draw more people in. And I think, it's just important. We want people to be in our county because the longer they're here in our county, the more they're spending money in their county and the more the investment is returned to us. So I think that we get that and we understand that. So anyway, that's all the time we have. I know I probably went over time a little bit, but it's been a little bit since we've been here. And again, I just want to say thank you again to the citizens of this county. Thank you for voting for, I don't want to say this was for me, this was a vote for you, and this was a vote to keep your voice and voting for the executive position. There are so many great things that have happened under the executive form of government. I said this before, any stakeholder should want an executive form of government because you get two bites at the apple. You get to meet with us, and then if things don't necessarily go your way, you can go to the council or vice versa. There's two different bodies that you can really talk to, and I think that both are really important. So again, thank you for putting your trust in us and our faith in us, and we're going to continue doing good work. We still have 2 years left of this term, and we'll see what the next term brings. So anyway, anything else you want to add, Bunk?
Nope.
All right. Well, thanks, Bunk, for being here as always. And thank you all for tuning in. And we will catch you next time on the next episode of the Executive Exclusive. Have a great day, everyone.